to Woodland Pattern, to the retreat, to my dog, who I really hope is going to keep it down over there. So lovely to see everyone. I'm here on Kikite territory, and this is nearby the river colonially known as the Fraser. And it's the traditional waterways, as I understand it, of a number of people, including the Katzie, Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, Stolo, among others. It's my privilege to be here. And I think just before I continue, as we are here in a conversation on mass incarceration, I want to shout out the groups that I volunteer with, Joint Effort, tireless, humble crew who rarely is on this side of a camera, and who strive to connect community inside with community outside on matters of mutual interest. As well as Emma's Acres, who is just an incredible space of kindness and restoration for community who have been inside or are currently inside and are on work order. It's run by former inmates, and they do all of that work, meanwhile doing all of the intellectual work of gaining in biodiversity and food security through networks of communities. So we're here always, we always pull these people with us, I know. Yeah, feeding on garbage, thousands of distinct calls, two tones, crow call and crow family, driven to tropistic survivance, towards light, collecting light, a quip of skin, this pressure, caught in the briars, is bloody, then freer. I am cut, securely o'er, steal away, Rosie. Ain't I closest to you on the train? The light bulbs drops, the one track construction delay thorns my bloody gums. You, come here, come on. Thorns the bloody gums. The Greyhound bus quality of love kept in the loop, each crooked strange fruit, every stoop we had, we knew. We knew domination and death, purpose. Kept cages, matched blue jack streets, corner mine and the block fiscal ditches, manor wit thunder long after lightning. There's no asylum here. Winter is hitting the tents, the shacks, the trailers, the SROs. Extension cord coils around the service infrastructure. Generations come to work in the cold lapis glitter. We span a river in one stride. Designated pathways, prison guards shine, a light through bars, check, alive in your cell. Multi-level means maximum valuation. Pathogens then is a plantations, then is a sitting, sighting target. Hunger in neighboring parts of the body. The dull internal organs engage in outside. Movement extends, and we sense our location, looking at or going to attend. Here is the river's north arm, straight ahead on the dark shore versus away night. Vera droplets express, traditional. Quarantine and bury there the government. Hundreds of workers walked the parcel, a ranchery, raw, roll, uproar, connected corridor. Over the north side shadows and the moonlight streams, there's the dark duppy comb of reeds and the nerve ribbons that flail out of the water, breath taking. Come out of time for this turn, wild cherry, cottonwood, English ivy, great choiring branches far above, black willow empathy perched on the downed limbs. It's not a hand while it was writing. Wild's the island, not the factory. And while their shifts, they were family, figures with sloped shoulders, selling bags of cherries and newspapers on Jefferson Avenue. Come out to Heidelberg Street for this sculpture of stacked oil drums with USA stenciled on the side. Partial size deep into patinas, public purpose, strive, starve, open areas up and come to these zones that the light across our warm faces in these glassed in places and all the vacant land and the wide open spaces that we produced. Every autonomy opposed and committed. Birds kept off the crop. Once harvest was done, harvest done worried some, and worried men sing a worried song. Songs common in the red humming, their whole lives, persons, prayers, likely to become property. Master degrades the name. An owner tracked down and returned to the fields. Finance, finance, finance is a slave's word, and I'm a reed. Hungry, heavy equipment folds contacts back into experience, then back out. And teeth make contact with the glass in the atrium, the cracked and cut lips closest to you would press back. As a sunk soil cut red clay south and a merger step line. The black square becomes interesting only in context. Pointillism in the anarchistic notion of a society freed from work. Fabled books for so, imaginative militancy, slices rows and rows, shoot you, then remove the bullets, silence. But to all of you out there on the land, good morning. Massive day done, dreams run high. And we got the long count, wall marked beside side, beside take, beside blade. Low crude prices continue to take their toll, and we continue to live. As the gold price peaks foster ill opportunities for too many players in every sector, every drill out all year round is declining, a turning point in dependency ratios. Finance's sick shit ability to renew the lines, morph and misprice, contaminating groundwater surfaces, wells, composite loss, trends, borders, tracks, trail, commodity reports to war, the population centers. These rebarred, bared bones in the spalling infrastructure, the tone of a place in an ongoing crisis of water. It's all of this or nothing. Fatigue melts a semi-coherent poetry homes. Poetry homes, the things we do once there is a tireless day of almost pure concentration, to unpluck the neural machinery from the bone spurs, driven the spine, C-shaped, curling spine, inhalants, particulates blowing past, ultrafine particles blowing past, road shoulders, verges, interrupt progress, wander into the ditches and form a breach. The picture plane interval in transit space, heaping dirt onto the edges of wildfire, smolder on the verge, taking up trees. Where things were found ourselves those days were stretched across a bond, semi-trailer black with burgundy flame detail. It was all out. And every day felt or fell to 2 cans of Coke and a Mickey of rye. The strings of substance pulled through black holes for homes. So long mold, the damp sprung. There's no controlling the heat or the bedbug flashbacks, the shared laundry and all the domestic tasks made public. Hit the road, hove time, discipline to muscle. We won't have to drive too far. Just cross the border and into the city. And wherever this final destination takes us, it'll be higher ground. A waiting trench, this front across the dash, the deep open road, and on the window of the glass of these bouquet crystals, settlement streaming past. Mere side appears larger. It's the myth of the colonial and the bluff of ever present. Because after all, the lakes hold ashes and fur. And the long route tapers to a blue strip August. The walk along here, I was a daughter then, along a highway, on the route that she shines on, leaning into the path as nettle heavy with rain. There are times that a car bends perspective in its motion, making room. Measurable extents is some kind of care, comfortable enough front seat, shelter. Capacious hearts attend to traumas, and there are times startled by the good of nature, with the windows down and the pressure drops. Oh, pressure. Let the real sun in and that whistle of cold air. A port of entry between states, states altered under and over water. Solidity of form best achieved by the light falling against it, and in some dramatic and productive way, the light returns and it falls against us. Hard routes on a faint back axle suspension, suspicions, fear the gear, teeth chipped, stripped, designated, waiting in rooms, face repeat questions about having ever been arrested. The system could be ground down away over time. If not, the car is lost, a smatter of skills, smoke, and gears. Alas, it's your transmission. Ever been placed in handcuffs? Ever charged? As though what's legal matters. Matter restores refusal and will return tomorrow. Fleeting through border again, black in the belly, meadow march to a march of pavement. Inhalants exhausted as more particulates, particles, ultrafine particles, all kinds of dust, shred of tire, simple flags, see mines or pipes, ditch lines of minor valleys, discarded clothing that looks to still hold life. As with plastic or glass, flung containers out, containers of volition, pylons, pink, red, cracked, faded plastic, don't se voir, guardrails, garbage clouds. From somewhere along a path between the marsh of a ditch and a railway esker, I am heading north through territories of walkers. From the ditch side window, nothing is like the mountain causeway. If you are a lake south, like I am a lake north, and we're underground as far as Jackson, Chatham past the lake, steps, learn and remember, incoming, atmospheric, rivers, atmosphere, old currents, and we lighten up that migrant narrative, gears to war. And may we all, feathers incline and planes side by signal, trust the bass led to funk, made time, make time, dance, found pocket of black light climb. That last telephone to heaven, on the block, shoes discarded, the mismatched pair conspire in small talk, uncle buffers the rural, list lost in thought, reef hears the mosquito bite sting, sounds at night, on a wait, late, still a cutter, an editor, busy, sits by a fan propping open this paint-peeled window, listening to a neighborhood. The entertainer eerie chimes, ice cream, fireflies that pulse, fireworks well after the holiday, a pinch of rubber on the pavement, a distinct sound of a distant airplane. It's a real Ritz, loft, cheap boulevard under a harvest moon set in a rib of clouds. Underground resistance takes the front stoop. Got a car, so is grown. Summer now fallen away. Mechanic, griot, left home following emancipation. And scarce combs through ease, some evenings gain control of time, and I work. And I work for nobody. Nobody spur road, spread copper road, God. Nobody's Tiger Rock, Rust Valleys of emotional commodities linked in a jumpy price. No rush cracks the carrying case lines of scarification, where free burn builds on down here, where trust has been lost, the guns atop tipples. The industry's legacy is the police state, and our wrists wash the window on the hi-hat quest. There are no adjectives, just enter, fight, and exit. Ward, jar, carceral, and national contaminates water writing. Our sleep cedar and pine routes are rock slide water trickles. At a time, dirt banks stabilize, meander, and erode less and less. There are more and more pools and riffles following wolves. Certain, we are the river's course, elevating aspen to a flush of thistle. And every morning starts awake. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. That was incredible. Okay, so now it's a great pleasure to introduce, originally from San Francisco, Tongo Eisen-Martin is a poet, movement worker, and educator. His latest curriculum on extrajudicial killing of Black people, We Charge Genocide Again, has been used as an educational and organizing tool throughout the country. His book, Someone's Dead Already, was nominated for a California Book Award. His latest book, Heaven Is All Goodbyes, published by City Light's Pocket Poets series in 2017, was shortlisted for the Griffin Poetry Prize and won a California Book Award and an American Book Award. At one point in Heaven Is All Goodbyes, Eisen-Martin writes, quote, "I am your historian." And his is a multi-dimensional, multi-temporal history, diffuse, tessaraic, to borrow from Claudia Rankine. His writing and his readings are beautifully free associative and improvisational, with a keen ear for the registers and resonances of speech, as well as a formal dexterity that allows for all of these elements to be in an almost impossible balance. It's, quote, "a journey of a million parallels," where a series of always unpredictable images, at once surreal and all too real, cascade. A vision that sees the world as it is, marked by the acute harms of white supremacy and capitalist greed alongside other worlds, the language of a radical onirism, sharing dreams of what's possible beyond the oppressive systems of this, quote, "porcelain epoch," succeeding for the most part, dying for the most part, married for the most part to its death. Eisen-Martin's is poetry that, according to Claudia Rankine, quote, "brings a new shared articulation to the intricacies and interconnections of grief and life, speech and sight, state and inhabitant, violence and landscape. This," she tells us, "is resistance as sound." Please welcome Tongo Eisen-Martin.
I'm off to make a church bell out of a bank window. Kitchens meant more to the masses back in the day, and before that, we had no enemy. Somewhere in America, the prison bus is running on time. You're going to lose your job before revolution hits. Somewhere I won't be home for breakfast. Everyone out here now knows my name, and I won't be turned against for at least 4 months. The cop in the picket line is a hardworking rookie. The sign in my hands is getting one more laugh that says the picket line got cops in it. I can take care of those windows for you if you want, but someone else got to go inside your gas tank. Was clear to the man that rich people had talked too much this year. Why don't you go ahead and throw down that marble park bench everyone's looking up at, get the Romans out of your mind. Maybe a good night's sleep would have changed the last 20 years of my life. Playing instruments like punching a wall. What would you have me do? Replace the population? Give brotherhood back to the winter? Stop smoking cigarettes with the barely dead? They listen in on the Sabbath. Police called the police on me. There was a white candlestick beneath my detention. I ruined the soup again, thought the judge as he took off his pilgrim robe behind the white people's door and more. I didn't get lucky. I got what was coming to me. He told us, "Fight me back," the man said. No, of course, to himself, washing windows with a will to live, tin can on his left shoulder, enjoying the bright, brand new blight with all party goers, both supernatural and supernaturally down after, what is this elevator? Traveling side to side? Like 1,000 bit of Polaroid pictures that you actually try to eat all the furniture on this street, nailed to the cement, cheap furniture, but we have commitment. This morning, an essay opens a conversation between enemies. Why? Because you control every grain of processed sugar between here and the poor man's border. Because in the tin can on my left shoulder, I can hear the engines of deindustrialization. Man, you should get into painting, tell lies more deeply. And this month, I'm rooting for the trader, carting cement to my pillow. Here we will build them high again, not talking much. And once you climb up the organ pipe to our apartment floor, I'm high again, calling everything church, singing along to a courtyard, thanks to a horn player's holy pastor. I'm just putting a real jacket on it, talk about a real 5 years. Keep memories like these in the pocket next to the toll receipt. That man lost a wager with the God of good causes. Stood up for himself a little too late, maybe too early. I could still see 20 angles of his jaw zigzagging through the cold world of deindustrialization. There's an art to it. I will tell my closest friends one day, when a drummer is present, they are God. I am not, and I I'm a Black Commons. I'm riding my new tattoo out on bus station glass, making tattoos all afternoon, trying to talk myself into seeing the decade through. I must really be the devil's front man, staring at an empty bus that I imagine in fact carries paintings of people. And the man drunk behind the wheel has to choose between the black and white toddler after school and a California street that doesn't need a name nor California. No one on the job, no one on the street has a job, and therefore no one is there. I colored my oppressor's gun and dance floor for him in the same day the joke began. The walk on the bus seats is fine by me as long as I get to the front, the joke concluded. And Tuesday is rotten soup, a downhill entertainment, a commotion in the ashtray, the day that jail quotas get filled, the day that the planet plays flat. And maybe a capitalist sets stadium seats on fire and calls it economic progress. Communists got plenty of time to finish their cigarette and lie to their boss. A killer lying down in front of a tank. I have a small statue built in my chest and also an anchor upside down in the air. Worried about the walls, I forgot that the ceiling was closing in on me too. That's my take on my alcoholism. I hunched over a meal I ate 5 years ago. It's my take on the look on my face. Cursed God a little, took another step up the staircase, and for a second, I forgot all occupants of the world, beginning with this house. I'm an action hero of one street proportion. You know, rap music is the way to count blessings. The 80s were better than this fiction. I have a piece of fence messed through my skull. I'll be half eaten my entire life. Always walking beside myself with a gun in my head and another one pointed at passersby. And it's like half of me, all of you walking in and out of myself, but I'm always happy to see you. What a miraculous route you took through my threat. Honest pay, a knife in my arm. Honest pay in my chest, a broken lock on the monument. You know, tell the truth, I forget what my hands look like, what I did with them, or what kind of third eye the handcuffs cut into my wrist. You know, apparently too much of San Francisco was not there in the first place. You know, this dream requires more condemned Africans, or put another way, state violence rises down. Or still life is just getting warmed up, or army life is looking for a new church and ignored all other suggestions, or folktale writers have not made up their minds as to who is going to be their friends. You know, this is the worst downtown yet. And I've borrowed a cigarette everywhere. I've taken many a walk to the back of a bus that led on out the back of a storyteller's prison sentence, then on out the back of slave scars, but this is my comeback face. I left my watch on the public bathroom sink and took the toilet with me, threw it at the first bus I saw, eating single mothers half alive. It flew through the bus line number, then on out the front of the White House. Hopefully you find comfort downtown, but if not, we brought you enough cigarette filters to make a decent winter coat, a special species, a handshake. Let's all know who's king and what's the lifespan of uniform cloth, man. This coffin needs to quit acting like those are birds singing. Rusty nails have no wings, have no voice other than that of a white world dying their book pages in the gas pump. Hey, catchy, isn't it? The way 3 nooses is the rule, or the way potato sack masks go so well with radio calls, or the way condemned Africans fought their way back to the ocean, only to find waves made in 1920s, burnt up piano parts, European backdoor deals, and red flowers for widows who spend all day in the sun mumbling in San Francisco. Red flowers, but what's the color of a doctor visit? There are book titles in the streets, book titles like Hero, You Make a Better Zero, or Hey, Fur Coat Lady, the President is Dead, or Pay Me Back in Children, or They Hung Up Their Bodies in Their Own Museums, and other book titles pulled from a drum solo. Run here, hero. Not the hiding place, all the bullets in 10 precincts know where to go. There's no heaven nor any other good idea in the sky. Politics means that people did it and people do it. Understand that when in San Francisco and other places that was never really there. I bet this ocean thinks it's an ocean, but it's not. It's just 6th Dimension Street. I don't know who's king. King of thin, you know, like America, I'm proud to deserve to die. I'm gonna eat my dinner extra slow tonight in this police state candy dispenser you all call a neighborhood. No set of manners goes unpunished. Never mind a murderer's insomnia or the tea kettle preparing everyone for police sirens. You know what? First, I should have apologized to the souls of the house, because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask only. like a pill bottle whose name is yours, name tagged on the side of a factory of risk. I mean, teeth of the mask now. Back of the head of the mask now. A new phase of anti-anthropomorphism finna for real faces. Stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. I'm not creative. I'm just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket, the police state psychic middleman evangelizing for the creation of an unmasses and unmedgar, blood of a lamb less racialized or awesome prison sentence. Right angle between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball. 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane to complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide. I am small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically. About paper tigers and also goes, I need my left hand back. Broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in a fist fight. Hey, maybe I should check into the Cuban line. Watching the universe's last metronomes, some call black Jacobins. Hey, just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally, in a cotton gothic society, class betrayal gone glassless. I mean, ironically, my window started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls, which socialist breakthroughs, like taking 10 steps back and finally trying stillness, like introducing Gabriel Prosser to Thelonious Monk. Man, I remember childhood. Remember the word childhood being the beginning. Scribbling on an amazing grace, I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest, strange fruit theater, lithium and circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy foam, with opioid tea, sentient dollar bills yelling to each other, pocket to pocket, cello stands in the precinct for accompanying counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. A poet loses his mind, like the room has weather or first girlfriend gravity. Now, the difference between me and you is that the madness wants me forever, a pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure. Books behind my back, bail money paved into the streets playing. Euphoria, cliche, bracing for the medicines, recoil, sharing a dirty deli sandwich with my friends. Black Jacobins, underground topography of a grandmother's hands. Psychology of the mask now. Teeth of the mask again. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history and take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest post. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your death for last. You are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops. And prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill, a neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise, a new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder, the figment of village, a new noose to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavers some time, didn't it? The tangent screeches of military boats and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses, that sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque peach plastic and bolt action audiences. The measure every second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondled news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms, simple policing versus structural frenzies, elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums, artless bleeding and a challenge of watching civilians think. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads and their arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crests. Modern fans of war, well, with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt, and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus, I have no choice but to read the city walls for the signs of my life. I talk facing away from the dead. They replace me with the change in my pocket, a penny that's yet to be invented. They say you have to know how to cut a throat on the way to cutting a throat. After sleeping on a mattress made from 2 garbage bags of clothes, I became content with the small gestures of plantation fires. Playing with couch ashes, I realized how weird the universe was. It exists in so many places, so many random things that interrupts me while I'm trying to dream. Like your clay correspondence, Lord. To be transparent, I have 20 books next to a bullet like an old man giving advice at the beginning of a revolution. Man, I've really done it, Lord. Explored the mumbles of my mind, explored what's naturally there, and I found no brainwashing. I found Africa, Lord. I have a future. It takes place in the diasporic South. I have morning possessions, modern militancy. Windows to the South. I'll walk on a missile for food. I guess you will not want flowers for a few years, Lord. Will I be tied face to face with the country I murdered? Merge with us, Lord. Our old metal versus new metal. Our old metal versus a pool of meandering imperialist faces. Multiculturalism of sorts. The dead replaced me with a comedian's chest cavity instead of a chest cavity. held tight. It takes a violent middleman for me to talk to myself. Stories that travel through other people's stories. A song about a song, a hemisphere about a hemisphere. Stories that travel through a conquered poet. Hey, my mother remembers Africa, Lord. She killed on behalf of you, Lord. I wore a machete all winter and no one asked me what it meant. I read 1,000 books in front of the world. You know, what I do is fight poems and sleep through decadent San Francisco prayer circles. Watch people play for post-working class associative services or recreations of a governor's desk, you know, ruling class art of utility, playing find a sociopathic bureaucrat, today some white people scare, even easier, TV in a basket next to a ceramic baby, wearing ceramic armor, musket progeny, fantasizing through the art of the poor, their trendy latches locked before God, black art hunted down like a dog. And hand over my friends, Lord. Lord, I think I'm gonna die in a war. Unelected white people in my small house like a blues song of no spiritual effect, or dollhouse H-bomb, a pony show near dead bodies. I mean, apartheid weddings that go right, apartheid white people who give birth to mathematicians, the spiritual continuity of barracks and police stations, a chemical interpretation of a Sunday trip to church, church smells in their pockets, a river mistaken for a talking river, no autobiography outside of small personal victories of violence and drug use, made in the image of God's trinkets, where white abolitionists confided in their children about. Chemical assurances that they will switch from black artist to white artist, from black God to white God, from black worker to white worker. You know, I think about you cautiously, Lord. In the same way I think about my childhood. Foxhole Friday nights, most of life is mute. A comedian points out a planter's field to a priest. King Sugar Cane, King Cotton King, revolutionary to Ball Essential, containing all modes of shallow introduction, introducing an unlisted planter class speaking about fevers and balance sheets, and reassuring the masses that we can figure out our fathers later. You know, a priest took my mother lightly, Lord. Stood in front of parishioners, re-raveling fantasies about black art. Man, priest read it confidently before I broke him and broke his parallel. You know, after the day, I've never been a poet before. A little brother watches his big brother's friends. They lean rifles on sheltered walls, man. They agree with me and call it literature. Shit, it's a simple matter, this revolution thing. To really lie to no one. To keep nothing godlike. To write a poem for God. I'm gonna leave it there. The end.
It's amazing.
Thanks so much. That was, yeah, both of you, incredible. So thanks, Tongo and Cecily. Now we have, if there are any questions, we can pivot to that part of the. I'm seeing if any are coming in. So the way this can work is, right, if you want to just drop something in the chat, you can do that, and I'd be happy to read and facilitate. Otherwise, you can feel free. I mean, I feel like, you know, it won't be chaos if you just unmute yourself and ask a question too, if you'd like to ask directly. So however that you'd like that to work, depending on your, you know, whether or not you want to be on, you know, be speaking directly, have your video on, etc. So. I'm gonna switch. Any thoughts, questions? Oh yeah, do I see Stephen? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, hi. I'll ask, I don't know, maybe not too deep a question, but this is something to get us started. But both of you read laterally across your work in really wonderful ways. Like I know, Seth, I could tell from knowing your work that, you know, sometimes it's stuff I haven't heard before, but then it's also some poems I have heard before. Oh, then it's a poem from another book, but it just moves and you don't notice any seams. And Tongo, you know, my experience of you reading before is just like that too. You know, I tried to pick up where you were in your book when I was listening to you read, and I couldn't follow you, which is awesome. And even though there's this little sort of bridges, Tongo, when you're reading where it's like, it feels like, oh, he stopped and he's talking to us as an audience. Nope, it's still the poem, and on it goes. So I don't know if either of you had any thoughts about that. It's partially a difference between performance and print, I guess, but I just love how both of your readings move that way, in this sort of seamless, singular performance, kind of not paying too much attention to what appears where in a book you might have written.
Thanks, Steve.
Poetry nerd question.
I don't know. I think it's I don't know. Hey Tongo, I haven't a chance to say hi. It's so great to hear you read, man. I miss you. And beautiful faces out there. Steve, so I think that's one of the amazing things about being able to put poems in your mouth and carry them through your body. It's a real privilege to be able to read and to speak. I don't have quite the capacity to hold all of my poetry in my memory, but a lot of it is there. The difference, of course, between reading and performing is you can piece that together a bit like a record playlist, or and I try to curate it because to put the work in service to what the context might be. And so, we're trying to think through this idea of mass incarceration, which we know opens up this chasm of conditions and history and experience and so on. So I was trying to think through my relationship to that in the poetry, which definitely means moving across multiple books and a contemporary context. So to me, it's just sort of like a reaction to a context or to a situation, is to try to do that. And it's I really take a lot of joy too in trying to piece it together. I guess that's a couple thoughts. I don't know. What do you think, Tonga?
It's and it's they're really like hundreds of options, and in fact, really all I'm what you're actually seeing is just the sum of 100 decisions, probably, or maybe even more. Like I'm like making decisions line to line for line, stanza for stanza, but usually just some derivative of trying to get my mind, keep my mind from calcifying around like a defensiveness. And so it's just like, just trying to get back to the most open uh, place I can pull off. As far as like poem selection, though, some poems over time they end up like bunching together. They kind of, some poems are kind of get to forming molecules. And I'm also, at all times probably trying to get a poem down to a place where I can get it to like a kind of a muscle memory. So then once it's there, I can do more with energy. I can play more with energy when I don't have to think about it. But like I have to earn that. Like takes me it takes me a little while before I can do that. But then there are like poems that they can't handle energy yet. So when the like if I'm at a certain state, I'm not going to, like, there are places I'm going to choose not to go. Or if I know if I'm in at a good altitude, I might um, try to stay there. Um, but it's just, different poems kind of have different effects. And there's also a decision based on like the kind of not melding, but like really like introducing yourself to this kind of the bond between you and whoever's listening to you, because poetry is like, is so much of a like imposition, actually, as light as it seems like, or as whispery as it seems, as whispery in existence as it seems to have in comparison to other big bad crafts, like music or dance or something like that, where it's just this, contact sport almost. Um, we're like going into people's minds. Like we're we're people are borrowing our train of thought. So therefore it's like going to somebody's house. The opposite though, like, would you like to borrow my sugar? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's like, you can decide what poems might be more inviting, sometimes I might go that route. But in like a room like this with groovy, familiar faces, like today like I wouldn't have done that if everybody wasn't so cool in here. You know what I'm saying? But you know, yeah, I mean, and there's this, I mean, really then the quest in conclusion, the quest is actually to come up with more decision possibilities, or to stumble into them, like a new way of slicing it, a new way of kind of holding your mind or maneuvering yourself. So I'm just like I'm always on the lookout for a new way to make a decision.
Nice, thank you both, and thanks for the question. And I see a couple of questions now in the chat too. So first, the first one up, thank you both for your words. Poets always astound me. My question is, when you write, through whose voice do you speak?
You want me to go? All right. You know, it's actually, like, you know, I don't know about you all, but like I mostly dream about people I've never seen. Like I like the characters in my dreams that I've like never seen before. And it's, you know, in a way, you know, I don't know exactly, I'm not even gonna try to like codify what exactly is going on. And I'm just gonna make the assumption that they're all different shades or attitudes of myself. It's kind of similarly, I might, I'm, I might almost viscerally feel different people, but it's really just, it's, 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 uh, it's almost like it's open, because and this is just like, it's just like I got lucky with a conversational style that can be animated in different ways. So it's like, you know, I can say, you know, I could say the exact same poem just like in a completely different tone, really with a different with different personalities. It's just a weird kind of like, there's a weird potential of synthesis where you have hundreds of, you might have like, you know, I mean, you know, you might have hundreds of impersonations of people. You might have like found people that are at your disposal. Maybe none of them want to come out to play. You have, you know, you might have, you know, these, you know, all of these tones, like attitudes and emotions that you can employ, or maybe, you know, none of them really want to make themselves available. Um, but the groovy thing is on the page, actually, if you just like, I don't really chase the voice, I'm just chasing the insight. I'm just trying to really push to see what I can do with language. And so it, like, lo and behold, there's something natural sounding that comes out on the other side. Um, but you know, it's there, but it's not really what I it's not really what I pursue. It's really just kind of like, if anything, I hit voices when I'm trying, like if I'm a little stuck, and I'll let difference, like if I'm grumpy, I'll let an older voice kind of take over. Or if I'm relatively smooth, I'll let a more like academic voice take over. I might like let my internal weather induce different kind of like avatars. But for the most part, man, I just chase the language. I'm just trying to get something insightful going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that make I think I know a little bit of that. I think in addition, in my work, there's a point of triumph for me to actually find my voice on the page. So to be able to account my own stories. And they, in terms of voice, they sometimes require more than the multiple voices or multiple perspectives or ways of thinking through. I've always really struggled with the I, position and to tell in personal narrative in any sort of typical way, I think. And I learned long ago that you could go deep through analogy and come out the other end with having some kind of still autobiographical meaning there. So it's only in my recent book, my most recent book isn't that recent actually, but anyway, my more recent writing, I do situate myself quite deliberately sometimes with real story. And it's been hard to do because it's just been hard to do. They're often stories of trauma, as it were, and not that I'm actually pretty good with my trauma at this point in time, but when you carry it into an audience or into dialogue, of course, it becomes something else. And it also could become somebody else's trauma and so on. So, but yeah, so there's, in terms of voice, definitely that multiplicity or the plurality, definitely the non-human and the ways that objects and infrastructure and systems and networks and time, all of those things pull apart as a kind of scale. So that really, dimensionally and universally, like it would be very hard to word. Yeah, I'm never ever getting it right, but just trying to come at it. But yeah, I would say that in addition there is this effort I'm trying to speak stories. Yeah, sometimes.
There's also like almost different parts of your like face or something you can write. Like there's different parts of your head you can kind of like lean into and see how it induces a different vibe. Like you can really get in your like really, I don't know, you can almost operate out of your eyeballs when you're in like a little in a kind of elevated type of mood. If energy kind of builds, whatever the energy is, you can kind of, there's just like different parts of your, like almost like it's weird, almost like projected brain structure. I don't know, but I all that to say, what you can always do, or a groovy thing, is just like pay closer and closer attention to yourself when you're writing. Like, what does it literally feel like? Like, what do the sensations literally feel like? And then when you're in these different sensations, do you actually move differently? What do these different sensations induce? Like, the more and more you pay attention to yourself, then the more and more you can actually launch different, again, like shades of your intellect, or different shades of your curiosity.
Yes, thank you both. Yeah. So got a bunch of questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of these as time allows. But I want to skip ahead to one because there's one from Alexa. Alexa, who's the education director at Woodland Pattern. Thanks. But it's a nice bridge between last night's conversation with Roger and Kwabena and Ashley and Jamal, and then the reading tonight and the ideas of not just mass incarceration, but also movement work in a general sense, and the relationship between that and art. So the question from Alexa, so she says, there's so much there to keep coming back to. Thank you. My question is, how do you see your art interacting with past and present abolitionist liberation movements? And how has your art and process evolved politically throughout time?
I'm sorry, the second part of that question was, how do you see your art?
I'm sorry, how has your art process evolved politically throughout time?
I find that the easier part of the question. Maybe I could start there, because I think personally I'm here because of the work of the work of movement, the work of art history, the work of culture, and so and how I'm situated relative to that trajectory in terms of abolition would be deep, but also I feel like I have so much more to figure out about that, because it's about learning. It's about constantly learning and constantly reading and thinking back through history and thinking forward. And in terms of the art and the trajectory relative to movement or organizing or this kind of work, like, I just don't know that it's ever been separated out for me. And I don't know, I wish in some ways that I could put art in front as the priority. And it just has not worked out that way in recent years for me. So it's evolved in the sense that it's something that I never put down anymore. So it's something that I don't isolate it. It's not like a precious thing, or it's not like it's not something like I go to work to do. It's just with me, and in the best of times, it can carry me. And it's not me singularly, it's me in situated in the context of community. And I'm really not so interested in being an individual who can do something if I'm in a group of people who aren't able to access the same thing. So art in the context of the simple work of, like, I don't know, I'd love to think that what I'm doing in an everyday practice is contributing towards abolition. I certainly use that language, and the people I work with share those positions, but I also know I'm deeply entrenched in my work all the time in institutions. They're very hard to escape. And to actually gain access to people inside prison by any means means having to negotiate those systems. And so when you're humbly just present, facilitating a poetry workshop, or humbly just present, putting together some craft, I've had a whole bunch of things handy by, but just, like building like a poetry anthology, and what does it take to do that? That's evolved. So the skill sets to actually the logistics to negotiate, to overcome, surpass, sneak by through, find new ways of communicating and beyond, and to build something beyond the systems, the carceral system, the policing system, whatever ideological system that's constraining us. Those skills are growing. So I don't, it's a rambly answer to say I'm not so sure. I don't know where my art is at, except that it's a part of a broad aesthetic that's like it's a collective thing, I guess. It's a common thing. But I don't know, what am I saying? Shh.
Yeah, I kind of got lucky. I got lucky that like the village that raised me never separated. It's kind of, and really the journey of Black art in general is always just like so much more at stake. And so that, just, even if I wasn't getting these groovy revolutionary mandates as a child, I think it had, if you allow it, it has that effect on you. But man, would you like to know a secret between me, you, and whoever is gonna look at this recording? It was actually what I believe is hugely responsible for my development, both as a poet and as a revolutionary, is meditation. Like back in like 2011, I was teaching in a I actually was a teacher this whole time. I've only been like a publicly asserted poet for like 5 years, the rest of my thing is all just like education everywhere. I've been the case manager, program coordinator, blank, like everything. So I was teaching in this alternative school in San Francisco. It was a school for kids that had chronic truancy. And it was really like the last stop, like they messed up there, it was over with, like nowhere else to go. So I just, decided that like if a kid fell through the cracks, it wasn't gonna be because I wasn't on point. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't gonna be because I didn't feel like being there, or I didn't have kind of like an emotional stability. And so, I kind of just like set my mind to, just providing the most revolutionary experience I could provide them. But it was still like a roller coaster. There are some things that, there's just some ways of handling a room that just a political commitment won't get you to the finish line. So, every day was kind of like a roller coaster in there. These kids were like the eye of the storm. Like anytime a youth got murdered in San Francisco, it was somebody's in the room, best friend, somebody's in the room, sister, brother, cousin, And so it was just like a really charged room. And somebody gave me, what's his name? I don't know how to say it. Thich Nhat Hanh, I want to say, this book called Peace in Every Step. And man, something just told me to pick it up, and I started reading about the mindful breathing, all this stuff. And I said, man, I'm just gonna, like 7 minutes before I go into this school, I'm gonna and it was funny too, because the school like right down the street from where I live. It was like a 7-minute drive or something like that. So I was like, right before I go, I would spend 7 minutes, and on my lunch break, I'd come back to the house and do another 7 minutes, and I'll be damned if the whole if the whole room didn't change. Just like, it's funny, if you even just having a few more milliseconds of space, a few more seconds of space, a few more seconds before you panic, a few more seconds before you let the triggers take over, you can almost pull off a whole different kind of humanity. And then I said this, and I'm like, okay, well, let me learn more about it. And I was getting acupressure massages in at the office. They had these books, and I just was like, man, let me borrow those books. I just started learning more and practicing more. And that it's through that really I got more. I had an actual chance of more lucidity in craft, more lucidity in revolutionary struggle, the necessary lucidity to actually to evolve, in my opinion, spectacularly. You know what I'm saying? So it's man, you can't get past that internal cultivation. And I was talking with Kathleen Cleaver once, and she said that actually she wished that the Black Panthers had a spiritual practice. She said that was the component we were missing, because we were, we had this commitment, we had this brilliant analysis, and we had, had some beautiful people, but there was a part of ourselves we weren't developing. And that's what made us susceptible to implode under the psychotic repression of the state. So, I think that's the actual opportunity of our generation is, and in response now to the first part, we have access to so much. There's so many, and really to greater people than us. Like the great ones were already here. The system has survived far greater people than us, right? So then, well, where do we enter? We actually enter into a place of being able to fill in to fill in those necessary bones, or to heal some of those fractures, so that we can do something like collective. Because that's the only way. We're not gonna even like individual collective our way, like we're not going to be able to co-op our way. We're not going to be able to art center our way. We're not going to be able to, to roast myself, case manage our way. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be able to do none of that. It's going to be a national revolutionary movement that will actually take power away from these psychopaths. Now, what's necessary?
International.
International, right?
Right.
God damn it. You know what I mean? And so you know, like, but that's the groovy thing though. Like we had this opportunity actually to be kind of like the healers of the continuum, you know, and that's where I see like that's my position of the in the dialogue. I think that it goes both ways. That goes behind us and what's coming after us.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alexa. So and another question, and maybe and I'm sorry, I know there are others here, but maybe wrap up with this one just for the sake of time, but I appreciate you all being here. And this question is for both of you, and it's, you contextualized your reading with a place. How does place and space change for you with time and through poetry? A new a new poetry physics equation, space plus time plus Peter, you've got to help me out with this question.
Here, the equation.
Yeah.
So how does place or space change for you with time and through poetry? So things change over time, obviously, but poetry is the lens from viewing them as they change over time. So I thought a physics equation made sense. Space plus time divided by or multiplied by poetry.
It sounds like you figured it out, Peter. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, place to me is unavoidable in my work in terms of a reference point, and part of that is because I write as I walk. I write on land. I am not a disembodied. And I'm writing on occupied territory. This is the sovereign nations of multiple indigenous community, the Turtle Island, where we all are. Globally, we understand that dispossession, displacement is a part of the routes of imperialism and capitalism and so on. So, I mean, there's no escaping that to me. And although I come through a history of the transatlantic slave trade, and certainly most of my genealogy, and certainly in terms of my social condition, and though I may be rooted deeply in these lands too, I have a responsibility to my settlement still, and so I just can't shake it. I don't want to. But the other element, like when we think about place and space, I'm very concerned and aware of built environment. I'm actually quite enamored of it in a very problematic way. It's part of why I write through it. Because I'm problematic in the sense that I think anything that we get too deeply invested in the aesthetics of without, you have there's a possibility of maybe losing some sense of the ruthlessness of the structures. But I do find the aesthetic of industry, I can't pull away from it. I always want to monitor. But there's that, and then the built environment, and then of course, I began, I say Kikite territory, but I beside this big river, and that is this flow. Like that is the real system that taps into a real history. The Great Lakes, they tap into a real history. And so when I start to really deeply, feel that sense of rootedness, there's lots of things that are happening there that are both in service to the work and the poetry, but they're also, helping me be present, relevant to the struggles around me today. I just wanted to say really briefly, there's a question on the chat there about my use of the word finance, and I said finance is a slave's word, and I'm a reed. I was wanting to read that in multiple ways, but it's the finance. It's all. I hope it's applied in terms of what I'm describing, and we can't shake that either. But I think about the notion of finance relative to slavery and the body of the slave and the ways in which the slave was chattel for the actual grounding of the debt and the formation of the United States and so on, and the ways in which our bodies were an actual currency. So I think about that. And then I think about, I have a long history in administrative work and financial stuff. And I have a penchant for math and economy, which is also weird. But when I say I'm a reed in the sense of the reed coming out of the water, but I'm a reed as in like, I'm going to fucking read it and I'm going to learn and I'm going to understand these systems as best I can. That when I have as much energy as I can for that. So I hope that makes sense to the person who asked that question, because it's not that come from a lifetime of entrenched poverty and I'm propertyless, and I do understand that that's a grind that many of us have to contend with and our families contend with. So I don't mean to be light about finance. That was a ramble. Okay. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Man, I really just got booted out the. I got flushed out. I don't know what happened. I'll just add that I'm not gonna say I was like a spooky child, but I always kind of just had like a sense that, really everything is next door. Everyone is next door. The living, the dead. The heroes and heroines, the nobodies. Over here, over there, and poetry is just kind of like, just so happens to be access to all that. I think like the beautiful thing about poetry is like we really are kind of like the nobody voice, or we're like everybody's voice and everything's voice, like look at an object in your room and it can talk. So the more you kind of relax into that and try to melt your melt the aggression of your self-identity, the more you see and the more you can operate principledly, the more your mind can operate principledly on behalf of all these places and all these times and ideas. This cat named Q.R. Hand Jr., who was a beautiful poet, veteran of Black Power movement. The first time I seen a picture of him, he was opening for Malcolm X, and I was whining to him about some kind of like organizing effort. Something was going wrong, as it always goes, And he said, man, now what you got to keep in mind is that organizing is not linear. So you might as well like drop that lens of what we need to become and what we are now, what we're supposed to be, and and how can we kind of manipulate reality into becoming that. Just relax into your access to everything, and then you'll just be appropriate to a moment, and that's really all I'm trying to do, or one day might be able to do with practice. You know what I mean? But just be appropriate to a moment, and then and that will transport me accordingly, or that can transport you accordingly.
Thank you both so much. A really wonderful reading.
Right on. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you for the speakers. And I don't know if they're here, but to Woodland Pattern for hosting the event last night as well. It was just I don't know if that recording will become available, but it was a compelling and resounding in the work group of people who are super articulate too. So it means a lot to be framed in relationship to that. Yeah, thanks, Tongo. Thank you, Mike.
And thanks for the broadside thing y'all did.
Yeah, that was lovely.
That was beautiful, man. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different read. I read the poem differently after that.
Yeah. Y'all really captured my whole little, I don't know how you did that. That's like, that was actually that's like my real cadence. My real, like, almost, that's my real, like, audio grammar.
Mhm.
But it was quiet. But there was no sound.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and thanks so much to both of you. I like just so deeply grateful for you for this reading. It was incredible. And yes, to Roger, Robina, Ashley, and Jamal for last night's conversation, which was amazing. Thoughtful questions, and to all of you for just being here and sharing this space. Much appreciated. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Love you, Cecily.
Oh, I love you too, Tongo. Stay well, friend.
Sure.
Take care. Good night.